everybody. Welcome to another Houdini tutorial. Today we'll be learning about Vellum. Vellum is a very popular tool in Houdini Banshee or Houdini 17 to use. It's new to the system in Houdini and it's quite popular right now. Today we'll be talking about using cloth simulations with Vellum, as that's a good place to start if you're new to the whole Vellum system. Overall, I'll be going over some render settings, I'll be showing how you can add forces to your Vellum cloth simulation, and I will also be adding lighting to my scene as I currently work as a lighting and comp artist. So here we go, let's dive right in. So before I even set up my geometry, what I'm going to do is add my lights into my scene. I found like good environment light, an ambient light, and a distant light work good for me because a distant light simulates the sun in Houdini. Ambient light has your overall global illumination, even though global illumination is its own separate light in Houdini. Ambient light just gives some more overall ambient light to the scene, and your environment light is if you have a sky. So here we go. We'll add a geo node. And if you're new to Houdini 17, you'll notice that there's nothing in the geo node. You don't have to delete anything, which is fantastic. It's one less step of your process. So add a file, and the file will be our geometry or a collision object we will be bringing into the scene. Our grid will be our cloth. So for our cloth, we're going to focus on that for now. We probably don't need to make it any bigger, but we're going to double check on the geometry we bring into our scene. But we will need more rows and more columns. So 100 is good for now. I feel safe around 150 because I don't really want any tearing, and most of us don't want any tearing in our cloth unless that's a look that we are going for. So the file that I am going to use is something I got off of free3d.com. I'm going to load that into the scene. As you can tell, it's quite bigger than our cloth, so we're going to scale it down. So I'm going to add a transform stop, connect it. For whatever reason, I'm getting these red glitches. It hasn't really interfered in any of my simulations so far. I'm going to rotate it and make it maybe 0.5 its size. Let's go for 0.3. And I'm going to go to my grid, see where that is, bring it just above and center it maybe? Yeah, centering it will probably be the best bet. Make this 30 by 30. You can make the sizing uneven if you are going for a certain effect that requires uneven sizing. But that's your basic setup so far. So now after we've rescaled our collision object, we've rescaled our cloth objects, you're now going to go and create a Vellum configure cloth. So as you can see, there's three inputs. This is for the Vellum constraints. This is collision geometry, and this is your required Vellum geometry. So I'm connecting the grid here. I can connect the collision object here, but it won't actually work until you connect a Vellum solver. So for the Vellum solver, what you're going to need to connect is all three of these. Without all the information in all three of these connections, your whole simulation will not work. So we can see that where our collision object is. So already we can see that our cloth simulation is working correctly, but there's no forces really connected to our cloth other than gravity. So what can we do about that? Let's make sure none of this is tearing. We can see some very rough edges, so I'm probably going to go back in, reset this to frame 1, and make this 250 for each of them. That's going to give me a lot finer divisions in my cloth and probably less tearing. I think I'm going to tear this cloth up a bit and play around with it in the simulation, as I find when you tear cloth, especially with Vellum, you get more interesting results. and the whole simulation looks a little bit more interesting. So we'll just let that load up. And while that's loading, we'll go to my website again, where I've actually written a little bit more information on Houdini Vellum. I've given my example of a soft body that I created a while back, and I've also given some breakdowns of some of the important Vellum nodes. Vellum post-process, I'm not going to use that today because I don't want to kill my computer. Vellum post-process gives more leeway for troubleshooting, and also gives you different visualizations for your simulations, such as stress and bend. It's very useful if you know what you're doing and if you're having any issues. It's very good at diagnosing issues. But Vellum grain is very interesting to use, and that one is great if you're doing something where you, let's say you are using a lot of different grains and you're going to be attaching trail modes to them. It's very interesting. You get some great results with it. So as you can see, well, that's looking pretty good, huh? That's looking great. So where do we attach our forces? In the Vellum solver, of course. So we're going to go into our Vellum solver, and it already sort of looks like a .NET. And in some ways it is. So what we can do, input 1 would be our cloth, our Vellum cloth geometry. So we're going to use that, and we're going to connect it to our force output. But in between the force output and the input 0, which is input 1, we can add pop forces. So in this case, I'm going to use a pop axis force because that's one of my favorite force nodes. And I'm going to scale it up to the area that I need. And as you can tell, it's all the way the hell down here. So what we are going to do is scale it up a bit to a point where I can see it and where it is. And come on, work for me. Nope, okay. Push it up a little bit, probably going to go somewhere around 67. That's a bit too high. We're going to push it back down again. There we go. So when our cloth hits this force, it should do whatever the force tells it to. So in this case, I'm going to give it a little bit of a fall off. I think I'm going to tell it to suck in the cloth to the statue herself. But I think I'm also going to make our height a little bit bigger. That's way too high. Yeah, dog. And do something like that. That looks good. That looks decent. Just scale that down a bit. So let's see what happens if we just have our settings like this. And I'm just going to load it up to 24 frames. You can already see at the top here that our cloth is starting to tear from the forces that it's being sucked in. So we're going to get a very interesting result in a couple seconds, but I'll let you know when we're finished loading our simulation. So here we go. Here's our simulation. As you can tell, it's not something that I like, so let's fool around with our settings so far. I think I'm going to suck it in a little bit. Yeah, suck that tummy in. We all like to be soft bodies in this industry. Let's crank up that orbit speed. And flip book it out. As you can see, our cloth is crinkling up at the edges now as it's being sucked in. And you can animate these forces too. And I think we're going to do that. So there's a little bit of fall off. So our cloth falls, gets sucked in, and then let's go. Yeah, let's do that. because it's a bit spinning at the top and I would like it to fall a little bit. There we go. Calm down, I love you. Might want to apply a little, yeah, as you can see in our Vellum solver, you cannot apply your gravity node. And the reason you cannot do this is that already in your Vellum solver, gravity is already applied. So it's kind of redundant in the sense of applying it anyways. So let's animate this to something at the end. Don't do that. And you may be seeing I'm not really setting my values quite just yet. Put this at 0. Orbit speed. Let's put that at 1. Maybe 1.2. Let's go to our geo node. Add some more sub steps. I feel like any sub steps for Vellum over 3 or 4 creates a more stable simulation. Good forces. We've got a gravity here and we've got our wind. I'm going to add a -1 for the wind so we have more force pushing it down onto our object. Simulation. Awesome. What are you doing? I'm going to add a little bit more mass to our simulation. Maybe a little bit more thickness. Point 2. Enable plasticity. As you can tell, I have a speech impediment. I'm sorry. But let's just flip that out. See what happens. So our flipbook is finished being rendered. Let's play through it. Now, I made some minor adjustments as I found that the flipbook was not appearing as I would have liked. But after animating our cloth noise and enabling plasticity, we've able to create some rather unique cloth effects where it wraps around the head of or torso of our statue and we get some cool cloth effects. Now, let's render that out again. I think I'm going to add a file cache node. And for the file cache, I think I only want to cache out. Stop it. I love you too. Desktop. Render. And I'm going to go Vellum $f.bgeo. Accept. Load from disk. Save disk. This is going to take a while. Actually, I'm going to save to disk and background. It wants me to save, so let's save. I'm just going to go untitled for now. And while it saves the disk and background, it's going to ask me to open the scheduler. I like keeping the schedule opener because I can see the percentage of that which is rendered out. So in this case, rendering this, you're only going to see the cloth. How can we put that all together so we can see not only our cloth simulation, but also our collision geometry? I'm going to get a null. Connect that with this. Click out. Sim. Go up here to our statue. Create another null. Put out. Geo. Now I'm going to relabel this, Vellum simulation, create another geo node. Relabel this together and turn this off. So we're going to go in here and create a couple of object merges and go to the tab menu, create another one, name this cloth, this one geo, create a merge. And I like to create all my nodes before I actually load my geometry, because in that case, nothing crashes. It's just nothing. Just how I like it. Just nothing. Save it. Go to my cloth. Object 1. Go to my Vellum simulation. Go out sim. Go out geo. And ta-da! We have it. Now, we're going to apply two separate materials onto two different objects. In this sense, I'm going to use a red velvet. And I think I'm going to use a white porcelain for the object itself. I don't think I'll have to put any unwraps on this for the cloth, but I might have to UV project for my geo because it is a statue. And it isn't flat. So we've got unwrap. We get an unwrapping lesson today. This is exciting. Quick shade. Let's see what's happening with the quick shade. It looks good. Don't mind it. Go down here. Go to our materials. White porcelain. Red velvet. In this particular case, I'm probably going to switch my render settings. And look, Mantra does not like me today, so it's going to not create itself, and we're going to have to manually create our Mantra node. So I might want to render my current frame range. Sounds good. But I'm going to also go to rendering and change this ray tracing to physically based rendering. Going to go to my diffuse quality, probably put that at 2, 3. Probably happy for my reflections and refractions. Don't need to do anything about volume. Maybe make that a 2. 2. Let's go to our render manager. Pause, and kill. Not sure what's going on there, because that didn't happen before, but... Interesting. It's not colliding with our geometry. As you can tell, Vellum can cause some issues if you don't know what you're doing. Or you know what you're doing, but Vellum just doesn't like you today. So, already it's colliding with here. I think we just need to pipe in our collisions together. I think there's just something wrong with I like that better. It's never happened to me before, but you know what? We'll figure it out as the day progresses. Let's turn that back on. And we should see the top of his head. Cool. So let's render that out and just see what's happening. We might have to adjust our res velvet, as I find that sometimes the sheen can interfere with the color sometimes, depending on what you're going for. Don't mind me, I'm just pouring a cup of tea in the background. And I think I will tint down the sheen. There we go. Cool thing about Houdini, if you hold down, we'll let this start rendering before I do it. you click about any area, it will just concentrate the rendering on that area of the render. So I'm holding down my left mouse button and I'm just zooming in, and I can see how this will be finally rendered out, and it's concentrating the area which is rendering right there. So that kind of looks good, and I'm happy with the color. So let's stop here. So as you can see here, we have the formings of a vellum cloth simulation. Just loading a little bit, but we'll let her run and we'll discuss what we've created. So here's our vellum cloth simulation. As you can see, we've got our cloth moving, we've got our animated forces, and we got our cloth curling around our collision geometry. So we'll render that out again and see what's going on. Cool. And that is our tutorial for today. I hope you enjoyed it. My name is Kate, and this is our first Vellum cloth tutorial, or first Vellum tutorial. I will see you soon. Have a great day.